One Piece chapter 10,042 is out very early, and man, is this a good chapter. This is one of the chapters that I would like to go back and reread a couple of times, not just to see if I'm missing something or hadn't caught anything, but because I enjoy like the action and the content. The cover story is still focused on Niji and Yonji back at Whole Cake Island, but surprisingly enough, we have Oven taking them away to the main island of Whole Cake, and Pudding's kind of just standing to the side. Now, there's still a possibility that we're gonna have some kind of prison break, but I'm now entertaining the idea that maybe Pudding just wanted her revenge and she's actually going to leave them in the book. That might be really interesting. Now the chapter starts off in a really weird spot because all of a sudden Drake is here taking on one of the CP0 members and he's actually stabbed him through the chest. Now we saw Drake last chapter talking about not going down basically empty-handed, so I think this is his way of getting something done with him. Is he going down here? I don't think so, but CP0 does get a good shot on him. Now we get some really interesting dialogue between the two because Drake says he's enacting his own justice. Basically, he's doing what he thinks is right. And the CP0 agent says, "I envy you." So it seems almost like the CP0 agent is not, well, obviously they're not acting of their own will, but it's almost like they're forced to do certain things here. Like they don't have a choice or else something bad happens to them. And I think that's pretty important because you look at someone like Rob Lucci and you see that it doesn't seem like he's necessarily being forced to do things. It looks like he genuinely wants to and enjoys doing what he does in CP0. As far as this agent goes, it seems like he doesn't really have a choice in what's going on here and that he's actually not super happy, or at least he doesn't think this is the way he wants to do things. Back in the Flower Capital, we still have people lighting their lanterns and basically letting them into the sky. People still haven't seen Onigashima, and I'm still assuming that what's going to happen here is the lanterns are going to light up the sky enough for people to see it. I think that's going to be my final call on when they see Onigashima. If the lanterns make it into the sky and we still can't see it, I feel like there's something missing there. But we very quickly transition into the meat of the chapter, which is Luffy versus Kaido. We're still in the midst of Luffy using Hydra and Kaido pretty much taking all those hits. He actually manages to block like one or a few of them, but he doesn't really have a chance to stop everything. He notices that he's changing trajectory to whim, and he kind of has the same reaction that Doflamingo had, where Doflamingo was wondering why Luffy's arm wasn't stretching back, and it's like, rubber shouldn't act this way. Kaido's having that same realization. And the fact that Kaido is the second person saying something like this, I think lends the idea that Luffy's fruit isn't the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or at least it isn't rubber. I think this is hinting that there's something else with Luffy's fruit that allows him to do this. Now in the midst of the punches, we actually get a new drunk phase from Kaido, and it's Furry drunk phase, which caught me really off guard. I did not expect this to happen, and it's very weird to see Kaido kind of like make that face and everything. It's definitely funny, but I definitely didn't expect it. But very shortly after, we get another drunk phase, which is thieving drunk phase, and it looks like this is Kaido using observation haki to see the future. He even mentions to Luffy like, "I hope you don't think you're the only one that can do that, because I can do it too." And he switches into his dragon form and moves through the punches, which is very clean. It reminds me a lot of what Katakuri did when he kind of mochified to dodge everything. But the fact that he can dodge all of that in his dragon form, which is massive, is insane. And so after dodging all those attacks, Kaido comes in for a bite and actually ends up putting Luffy entirely in his mouth. And he does something really cool with his Boro breath. So he bites Luffy, takes him in the air, and kind of points his head down. And so when he opens his mouth, Luffy falls out, but Kaido immediately uses Boro breath and hits him with it. And for the most part, Boro breath has never really hit a target. It usually misses, gets blocked, gets dodged, one way or the other. So one, I'm surprised it actually hit, and two, this was a really effective way for Kaido to do it. And because he pointed his head straight down, the blast pretty much rips through Onigashima and sends Luffy down through Onigashima as well. Now, with how much the island is taking damage, like there have been holes shot through it, it's crumbling, it's barely holding up, I think the island might just crumble itself before reaching Wano at this point. Structurally, it's barely sound anymore. Like the only thing that might be holding it together is Kaido's clouds. So if they do go away, that might be a bigger problem for everyone on the island than we expected. Luffy makes his way out of the Boro breath using Bound Man, which kind of gives us a few answers to some questions we may have had. One, Luffy can switch seamlessly between Snake Man and Bound Man, and it's pretty simple. It probably just applies to him adding more air to his transformation. The other thing is that Snake Man is very static. Basically, Luffy is in one spot and he kind of attacks from that spot. He doesn't move around as much as he would in Bound Man, and that includes his ability to fly. One of the things Bound Man has is that he uses the elasticity of his feet to kind of fly and soar through the air. It doesn't seem like Snake Man has that same capability. Luffy propels himself back up to the top, and basically the fight continues with Luffy charging up a new attack. And before they do the clash, there is some banter back and forth. Basically, Luffy once again announcing that this is his last Gear 4th, so he has to make his hit count. And then Kaido's kind of talking about who he's joined forces with. And it lends to the idea that Kaido doesn't really trust people and that, you know, betrayal and that's and so forth kind of coming ahead. And he's mentioning that, you know, you chose who you're going to be with. You chose basically the losing side with the samurai. They let their honor and their ideals get the better of them, and ultimately they take a loss as some form of honor, which basically Kaido says a loss is a loss. Luffy, of course, isn't having it. He's still determined to get Kaido out of here, and he charges up a Supreme Kong gun. And this is basically a King Kong gun, but with Color of Conqueror's Haki coated on it. Now, I think this is the strongest culmination of all of Luffy's feats so far. Basically, we have Color of Conqueror's coating, we have Gear 4th, we have Armament Haki, and we have his strongest Gear 4th attack pretty much amplified with all those surrounding things. So basically everything Luffy has trained to use is stacked up in this attack. And he even manages to do what Robin did to one of the pacifistas back in Samundi, and that's blowing up an attack in Kaido's mouth. Basically, he's charging a Boro Breath, and Luffy lands his punch when the Boro Breath goes off, so it basically explodes in his mouth, which doesn't seem to do too much. Kaido does fall back, but he's back up pretty quickly. And not only is he back up, but he's back up with a Thunder Bagua, and a roaring Thunder Bagua. So this one I'm assuming is a bit more amplified. Now, I was going to say that he's using Conqueror's coating on this as opposed to when he did it before, but when Luffy first learned the idea of Conqueror's coating, he got that from a Thunder Bagua. So my assumption was that that's what Kaido was doing before. So the difference now, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's a higher application. Maybe it's got armament and conquerors on it. I'm not entirely sure. But we basically get a shot-for-shot panel of when Luffy first fought Kaido. We have the Thunder Bagua, we have Luffy in Gear 4, and we have Kaido speed blitzing him and basically taking him out of the form. Luffy has to cover his mouth to stop air from flowing out because he got hit so hard. However, he does manage to get back up and he's charging up another Supreme Kong gun, while Kaido pretty much charges a Roaring Thunder Bagua. And this is gonna be the big clash. This is supposed to be the clash that pretty much determines the fight. If Luffy doesn't do it here, he goes down. You know, if Kaido doesn't stop Luffy, this is supposed to be the punch that puts Kaido down. But we get interrupted. CP0 comes out of nowhere, sticks onto Luffy, and turns on Iron Body. And basically, I think what this does is it's pretty much weighing down Luffy's arm, so he can't swing. Now, Kaido notices CP0 is here mid-swing, but basically we're getting a reenactment of what happened with Oden, and that's Kaido being mid-attack when something happens. So he sees that CP0 is here, but he can't pull back the attack, and you can see the regret in his face when it lands. Basically, what just happened is Kaido was having an amazing fight, an amazing time in this fight, and CP0 just ruined it for him the same way the old hag did back when he was fighting Oden. So once again, he is deprived of basically the thing he's been searching for, which is an amazing fight. Now, even though Luffy took the hit, we don't see air billowing out of his mouth as he falls, so he could still be in for the count, although I think this messes him up a lot. Of course, he can't fall here because he said that this was his last go. Basically, if he runs out of Gear 4th, then he can't fight again. It's going to be it for him. So while that may have done a lot of damage, I don't think Luffy is out for the count quite yet. However, the CP0 agent that stepped in is about to get killed. Just looking at Kaido's face, basically the expression he has that he seemingly just won this fight unfairly. Basically, they're about to have the biggest clash of the fight, and the CP0 agent took that from him. So that agent is dead. It's over. Done. Wraps. And I feel like you can see in that CP0 agent's face that pretty much this is a death sentence. And he knew that going into it, like he mentioned when they told him to go stop Luffy, like, he's fighting Kaido right now. What do you expect me to do? So he knows what's going to happen here. And I think this also points back to when he was saying, I envy you to Drake, because Drake pretty much has his own freedom to choose how he wants to enact his justice. Whereas the CP0 agent was basically told, you go in the fight, no matter what happens, you take down Luffy. So even with his order down Luffy being taken down, he's not making it out of here. I really enjoyed this chapter. This was a really good one. I think it showed a lot for a lot of people. We see some interesting sides of CP0. We see interesting sides of Kaido. And of course, we have an amazing fight with, I love the choreography of this portion of the fight. I like what was happening here. It felt really fluid, as opposed to some of the other panels. I know people have been like, they're a little bit confusing to see what's going on here. This one, it seemed pretty clear. Like I could tell where punches were landing. I could tell where attacks were going, how things were working. I think this chapter was just really well done. Please let me know how you guys felt in the comments down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.